Hey everyone, welcome back to our Add to Your Faith study on the Synoptic Gospels. I hope you're doing well this week. I really appreciate so many of you messaging me and letting me know that you are watching this video study, and it is encouraging. That's really good to know. I'm glad that it's a blessing to you. Please continue to send me any questions or thoughts, ideas, just conversation about our topics. I love hearing from you and seeing how God is speaking to you through these passages, not just my opinion on them. I like to hear what you have to say too. So today we are continuing. Today's number is 56. Cast not your pearls before swine. Now this is only one verse, which is Matthew chapter 7, verse 6. I'll do one video on this, and then we'll do the next video on 57, the ask, seek, and knock today as well, Lord willing. Now, everyone turn to Matthew chapter 7, verse 6, and we can see exactly what God is saying here. So it says, "Do not give what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before." I'm sorry. I'm all over the place trying to find this verse on the screen. Let me try that again. "Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you." Now, I think it's really important for us to get context, first of all. So this is the verse that comes right after what I talked about last week, which was the not judging. And the verse that he ends with on that concept is about don't look at another person and judge their small sin, the little speck in their eye, while you have a giant log in your eye. Like, be aware of your own sins and how much we've sinned against God before we start judging others, right? But then this is the following verse. Now, "Do not give dogs what's holy. Do not throw your pearls before swine. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces," is what the Berean Study Bible says. I've got that open on my screen. So, when we think about how that matches the context of not judging, it's like it balances the concept that people sin in front of us. There's a public sin, there's something that we see or know, and our response should be to not judge them and to remember our own sin. But it also, in balance to that, is not just throw holy things in front of people who cannot appreciate or respond to them correctly. Now, there's so many different applications of this passage, and you may be able to think of some really good applications that apply in your individual life. But one thing that I thought about with this passage is in like a social media context. I know I mentioned that a lot, but I feel like right now during this pandemic, a lot of us are living socially online because we're disconnected from other people. Now here in Korea, this week we have been released from the bans of staying away from people and are allowed to gather together. So that's such a blessing. We're going to have church together this Sunday after 11 weeks of not having church together. So we're blessedly coming through this season. But those of you watching in America and India and other countries, there are still a lot of really heavy restrictions on social interaction. So a lot of us are online and talking to people online, as well as seeing and hearing and reacting to different people's responses and perceptions of what's happening globally with this virus. Now, it is so easy to become very frustrated and irritated during this kind of an isolation, and when our understanding of what's happening is limited to news and social media, which is usually biased and twisted and misunderstandings and confusion and anxiety and fear driven. When that is what is inputting into our minds all the time, if we allow it, then we often can start seeing other people's confusion and misinformation as being very, very frustrating and ridiculous, and we want to respond to that and try to correct the things that are wrong and try to straighten out those misconceptions that we can see. because all of us have a different perspective of what's happening around us. That perfect elephant analogy. Some people are looking at the trunk, some people are looking at the tail, some people are looking at the side or the foot. So everyone would describe that thing differently. We can be very frustrated if you're the person describing an elephant foot to a person who's describing the elephant tiny little tail, because it's completely different. And you're like, no, you're wrong. This is what I see. And those can be escalated by cultural biases, by language miscommunications, and of course by the literal spreading of misinformation, lies, and falsehoods. So there's this deeply construed issue of so many people looking at one thing from different perspectives, plus having wrong information and correct information, and just so much confusion going on. When this kind of situation's happening, we have different responses that we can have to it. One, we can try to talk to someone and give them our perspective, as well as correct things that we see that they have been misled or lied to or believed the wrong YouTube video, and when we do that, we have to be very aware of one thing, and that's to let God's wisdom control what we have to say. I heard this week someone say, your social media presence is no different than your, reality presence. One's virtual and one's reality, but you're the same person. And if your behavior online is different than your behavior in person, then that's not good, right? We're all responsible for our testimony and our presence online. So as we do this, as we talk to people who disagree with us, as we read things that are wrong, again, we can respond with anger, we can respond with frustration, we can attack those people, we can lay into everything that's wrong. We can completely ignore it and not give anyone any correction or anybody help. I think those are two different sides. But I think this verse is really a balance. And if we start back in verse 5, and again, I'm going to read from the study Bible because that's what's on my screen right now. You hypocrite, first take the beam out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is holy. Do not throw your pearls before swine. If you do, they may trample them under the feet and turn to tear you to pieces. So again, if we think about this in a context of communicating truth to people as we see it, our perspective, and trying to bring people into an understanding of that or a correction to that, one, we have to remember the log that's in our eye before we take the speck out of someone else's. And also we have to be aware of, are we throwing our pearls before swine and giving something holy to dogs? Now that doesn't mean we're calling people dogs. What that means is there has to be a boundary of truth being accepted or not accepted, and when do we stop sharing it? For example, you're having a conversation with somebody online, you're correcting them as you see it, and they just want to argue. They cannot see it. There is obviously no way that you're going to be able to show them your perspective or what you mean from their perspective. And so you stop throwing your pearls before swine. You stop giving something holy to a dog. Again, we're not calling them a dog, it's a perspective. You don't keep giving something to someone that they're just going to destroy and trample and not accept. There's no point in it, and it can lead to sin. Now, there's some cross references that I wanted to look at that go with this I think are really good. So in Proverbs chapter 9, verse 8, it says, do not rebuke a mocker, or he will hate you. Rebuke a wise man, and he will love you. So again, in this context, there are wise people that when we rebuke them and we say, oh no, what you've heard is wrong and that's not correct and you have misinformation. When we tell them that and we correct them, if they're wise, then they're going to love you for that. They're going to appreciate the fact that you've helped them see truth and they want that truth. And so there is a place of speaking that truth and seeing if the person we are speaking to is wise and able to receive it or not. But if we speak to a fool, and we try to force them, we keep throwing those pearls at them and keep trying to give them understanding, and they can't, they will despise. We will have a break in the relationship. There will be anger and irritation and dislike. And that is not ever a good result of trying to share truth with another person. So God is giving us some boundaries to work within on how we share truth and how we share our perspectives with others. Now, in Proverbs 26:4, it says, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be like him." Well, that one's kind of very specific. So let's look at that. When you see a fool, and I'm going to use Facebook because that's the one social media that I use the most. There's many ways that you communicate with people online. So whatever you use, that's your context, okay? So do not answer a fool according to his folly. When you see a post on Facebook and you know that it's folly, it is ridiculous, stupid, ignorant, dumb, whatever word you want to use to describe it, it is nonsensical. When you see that, and within you there's this, oof, I really want to correct this. What are they doing? Why are they believing that? Why is this their perspective? When we see that, and we know it's folly, don't answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be like him. We have to rise above the narrative, and instead of meeting people on their level of foolishness and just trying to argue with a fool, and again, that person may not be a fool about other things. That doesn't mean that every person we don't agree with on Facebook is a fool. No. But when we see something foolish, that person has believed a lie, that person's been convinced of something, or they're speaking from a cultural perspective that is not biblical, we see that foolishness and we try to answer him on that same level, then we are like him. So, we have to remember that first, before I correct someone else, I have to be aware of my own issues, that beam and speck, that little dust and log analogy. But we also have to realize that when I am right and it is truth, and it's not coming from a judgmental place, it's coming from a teaching place or a helping place where I want to bring someone out of that. The wise ones will respond with love and appreciation, and the fools will respond with hate and disgust. And if I continue that hate, disgust conversation with a fool, then I'm exactly like they are. I am not living in a holy mentality. I'm just casting my pearls in front of the swine, so to speak. I'm just throwing them out so that they can be destroyed. And remember, also in that swine analogy, it says don't give them to them because they're going to destroy them. They're going to trample, means to beat down with their feet. They're going to destroy those pearls, and then they're going to turn and tear you to pieces. And that's what happens. A lot of times you share your ideas, your thoughts with someone, and they destroy your idea in their mind. They publicly shame you in these kind of social media sites, and they turn and just destroy you. They just tear you apart. They'll attack your character. They attack your beliefs. They attack whatever. And often these are Christians on Christians, just eating each other alive for different political views, from different perspectives on this virus, for different perspectives on a million different things. This is not Christian behavior. This is not godly. This is very wrong, especially in a public forum where lost people can see these things and see Christians just tearing each other to pieces as they trample under their feet whatever truth is being shared, and just foolishness and folly just building upon each other. That is such a terrible thing for Christians to get pulled into. So we have to be very wise and very careful that when we give pearls, that we do it without judgment, and that we do it to the right people, to people who can receive it and respond well to it. And if we see that they're not responding, you stop, because you do not want to be on that same level as they are. So, this is a very important, I think, message at this time. I know it is for me, because I'm dealing with a lot of just social media irritation these days as I read so many things on Facebook that are so wrong about this virus and about so many things. There's just an escalation of folly from people's anxiety and fear, and the fear mongering, people spreading misinformation and lies and fear, and it's just escalating to a place of rebelliousness and disrespect and hate and anxiety and depression and so many negative things that I'm afraid is going to greatly harm the testimony of many Christians as they engage in this kind of dialogue online in front of their lost coworkers and friends and whatever, family members. We have to remember that there is a time after this pandemic where we have to be people that are still respected for our opinions. And if we throw all of our pearls in front of people for them to get trampled and publicly destroyed, it's going to be very hard to re-engage in a way that's useful for the gospel. And you have to remember that about politics as well. That this happens a lot with politics here in Korea and in America and all around the world. Politics is such a uncomfortable and passionate topic for so many. You have to remember that as Christians, this world is not our home. Our loyalty is to the kingdom of heaven first and foremost, before all other loyalties. And when your words are only focused on a political party or a political perspective or a political leader, and everything you're saying is somehow in your mind approved of by God, just remember that whatever country you're in, other countries also are blessed by God or under punishment by God. You're not the only country that needs prayer, and politics as a sensitive subject is something that I believe destroys testimony more than anything else. Because when it doesn't matter to me as much about what political side you're on, it's how you talk about it. So if you're on the left or you're on the right or you're in the middle, every person, whatever their political view is, believes they're right. Or they wouldn't believe that thing. They've been convinced by that political group or by their family members or even by their churches that whatever political side they're on is the godly or the right or the correct side. And when we side up against other Christians and attack them publicly and virtually and maybe even in real reality, with so much passion, that passion can be greatly destructive when it's used against the other person. So in this concept of folly and fools, remember, just because someone doesn't agree with you doesn't make them a fool. You might be the fool. In a disagreement, one person is right, one person is wrong. You might be the wrong one. And in some issues, it's not right or wrong. Both can be a real concept that either person can believe in and still not be sinning against God. So in all those things, remember that whatever you believe, whatever political side you're on, or whatever view of the virus you have and the pandemic and any other hot topics, when you're talking to someone who disagrees with you, remember our speck and log analogy, that I see another person's as a big, big, big sin, a big, big, big problem. How can they support that politician, or how can they believe that thing, or whatever? And I can't see my own sin. I see it as tiny, but it's opposite. I should recognize all of my sins because I know my heart. And I am looking at this other person, and I should realize that this is not all of them either. So, again, don't throw your pearls before swine, and also don't judge people who have a different opinion than you. And don't judge absolute sin either. So if they're actually sinning, or if it's just different than you, either way, we're not supposed to judge it. And as we discuss those things, people's sins, people's beliefs, people being different, we have to do so with grace and dignity and love. And if everything we say is not seasoned with love and patience and kindness and gentleness, then we shouldn't be saying it. And remember that our audience is important. So who we're speaking to matters. If they're a person who is wise and can receive it, then we can give it freely and know that love will be exchanged. If it's a person who cannot receive it and it's going to cause more disagreement and more disunity and anger and discord, then we have to stop. So, I hope that you're encouraged and convicted today, because it should be both sides. In whatever ways you are pushing your beliefs and ideas on other people without love, patience, and kindness, then be careful and gauge what you say in person and online on how is this loving, and not just like, well, it's tough love. If I'm mean enough, they're going to be convinced of the truth. And that's not normally how that works. Most people aren't won over in an argument by how passionate we are, or how angry we are, or how logical we are. Most people are won over with love and kindness and gentleness and patience and peace through a relationship that goes way past an argument online. So, this is for all of us today. This is for me. I hope that I can read things online and not get so irritated and frustrated by it, because I am concerned for the hearts of the people that are believing lies, and for the state of confusion and escalation that's happening all over the world. But in that concern and reaction, I don't want to mess up a testimony with having an unkind or impatient or frustrated response. If we sound elite, like we are the only ones who know the truth, if we sound condemning, like everyone else is stupid than us, then nothing we say is going to communicate with other people. It doesn't matter how right you are. If you say it in the wrong way, it's not going to be received. Like my mom always said, you can say anything you want as long as it's respectful. And that really is true in all forums. If we're respectful, not just of God, but of the other person, not just of our belief system, but of the soul of the person we're talking to, then God is honored through that conversation. So, don't cast your pearls before swine, because they're going to destroy them and tear you up. And don't give holy things to dogs. Think through those things, ponder them, see how it applies to your life and your situation, in what ways you are being, you are finding yourself in those kind of situations. And let me know. Let me know how you find this applies to you, or if it doesn't, that's awesome. You're living a less stressful life. I'm very happy for you that you're not coming across people that disagree with you. However, sometimes it's really good to surround ourselves with some people who disagree, because that challenges us to make sure we actually are believing the right thing, not just surrounded with people who are completely buying the exact same idea we are. So difference is good. It helps bring balance. Just make sure that whatever we're saying, we are being courageous. We're out there speaking our truth, but we're also being kind and loving and Christ-like in that response. All right. I hope that this is encouraging, and in any way that it needs to be convicting for all of us, and that you have a very blessed and wonderful evening, and that all of your interactions online and with other people are not pigs turning and rending you to pieces. All right. Have a great evening. Bye.